Yeah.
Hear that music? Hear that music? Hear that music?
You know, still fresh.
Hear that music?
Go on. Fresh.
Hear that music? Hear that music? Hear that music?
You know, still fresh.
Hear that music?
Go on. Fresh.
Hear that music? Hear that music? Hear that music?
You know, still fresh.
Hear that music?
Go on. Fresh.
Hear that music? Hear that music? Hear that music?
Dance with me.
You know, still fresh.
Hear that music?
Go on. Fresh.
Hear that music? Hear that music? Hear that music?
You know, still fresh.
Hear that music?
Go on. Fresh.
Hear that music? Hear that music? Hear that music?
Dance with me.
You know, still fresh.
Hear that music?
Go on. Fresh.
Hear that music? Hear that music?
Hello. Hi, everybody. Wolf, Mike, Kathleen,
there.
Joe, how are you?
Hello.
We're good.
Hey, how's it going?
I love this. I love seeing all of you here, especially now that I got my fancy new graphics up here. Welcome again. As always, before I start, if anybody is in the chat room, just let me know if the audio is weird or shitty or whatever. I need a producer, man. I really should. I should get somebody to monitor my semi-professional thing here. My name is Rando. Welcome to Second Order Chaos. We've had a little bit of a facelift in the past week or so. A Jedi Day, thank you. He's like my de facto remote producer because he is always the one that's telling me what's screwed up and what's not. A little bit of a facelift. I got some, yay! I got Thank you for the subscriptions, by the way. I still have to figure out the. Oh wait, there's that. I still have to figure out what I'm doing with the graphics for the subscription when they show up, but bear with me. This is all new. My name is Rando. Welcome to Second Order Chaos. We are on our 4th edition of this panel, I think. We've been doing this for a while now. Ah, there it is. I found it. New fancy. We have a Discord server, by the way. For those of you that were on and have seen the 24-hour charity that we did for Bucks for Belize for Friends of the Ocean Academy. From that has grown the hashtag hacker streams, and we have our own Discord. It's not just for this show, although I will have my own room. So the Discord link is up there on the screen, which I will keep up somewhere on the screen as I figure this out. Joining the conversation. I used to Kathleen, you and I were just talking about this. Like Discord, I hated it. Like I couldn't figure it out. And it was all of my friends had Discords and they invited me. Like even the last podcast I was on, Hackers with Bourbon, they had one, and I can never figure it out. The first time, have all of you been in Discord before? Mike, Wolf, Joe. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
What the first time you got invited and accidentally like went into a voice chat? Did you panic like I did and just was like, no, I don't want to be in here?
No,
I haven't done that yet.
I got on and I could chat. I mean, I could text, but no one could hear me. And I was the presenter. And it took Sciatic, calling me on my cell phone as I'm crying because I can't get the pieces and my mind just couldn't wrap around it. And where was I? And I had all these people beeping at me and they were all trying to help. But, it finally took someone saying, share your screen and get through it. And once I got after the flusterness, I was able to present. But
you're gonna get through this.
Since then, ever since then, I was like, please don't make me get on Discord one more time.
I remember so I had mostly the same reaction as I did the first time I ever went online with Xbox, which actually wasn't that long ago. This was probably about 8 years ago. I had gotten laid off from a job, so all I was doing was playing Grand Theft Auto. And I was like, well, I was like, let me go online and just see what happens. So I got on and I went into the world, and some dude in this goat mask and a tutu invited me into his car to help me get away from being murdered. And then he tried talking to me, and I just turned the console off. I didn't turn it back on for like a week. Scared the daylights out of me. I was like, I can't handle this much social interaction online. But our Discord is very friendly. We have a lot of people on there. El Cantaro has his own room on there. Principal Heidi still has her own room, and she will forever, as far as I'm concerned, from the Ocean Academy. It takes a lot. Like, it's like I have to do my own coping mechanisms to deal with, like, as I get older. Like, we're all technologists in our own rights, and we all mess with this stuff, whether you like it, whether you think so or not. Kathleen, you are. You are your own manner of technologist. We all deal with this stuff in our own ways, and I still freak the hell out about it. And also I'm gonna do apparently what all the streamers do and ask you to subscribe, because I have that. I don't know. I still don't know what it is. I'm a Twitch affiliate now, which means I don't know. You can like subscribe.
It's technically like and subscribe, but
Okay, whatever the kids say on all these channels. And I guess that helps me get like revenue to like buy stuff and do cool stuff for everybody else. So, hey, dude, thank you, Zach. Do that, and like I'll see what happens, and maybe someday in 6 months it'll pay for all the graphics I just paid for that you see now. But I am Rando. I'm joined by Joe Johnson, Kathleen, Mike Murray, and Wolf. Gotta say it again. Gerlich. Did I say it right, Wolf?
Got it.
Thank God. Yeah. Jesus, I always worry about that. So we've done quite a few of these with this particular group of people, which I just adore every time that they come on. And we've talked about job hunting, right? We've talked about job hunting in the new economy, the new virus economy. What else have we talked about? This is like our 4th one. What other topics have we covered?
Didn't we do virtual interviewing?
Yes, we did virtual interviewing. Snafu's Gotcha, we determined that both Wolf and Mike were fabulous bastards when they had to interview people. Which is really still weird for me because you look at them and just to look at their faces, they are adorable. Like they seem nice. They don't have like resting bitch face or anything. Yeah, like you just want to pinch their cheeks. And then when they were telling those awful stories they used to do to people, I'm like, man, you don't know somebody. But so we covered that, and then a lot of stuff happened, and I hadn't talked about a new episode, and then Kathleen brought up, why don't we do something else? I believe she said, let's get the band back together. And she said, let's talk about coping strategy. So Kathleen, why don't you kind of expand on that idea that you had for this episode?
Sure. Thanks for letting me, suggest an idea. But
I'm not a tyrant.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
How dare you suggest, madam?
Heaven help me. I was looking at the fact that we're at 9 or 10 weeks, depending on which part of the country you're on, as far as dealing with shelter-in-place, pandemic, and all of the other things that are happening to a lot of people. And I think adrenaline and excitement gets us through the first 8 to 10 weeks. But now we're looking at a new normal and we need to have new coping strategies. And what are those coping strategies as a team member, as a team leader, as a job seeker, as an employer? And how do we just, May is Mental Health Month. How do we take care of ourselves better? Because you see all of us here drinking. Drinking is not necessarily the best coping strategy. It's a nice help, but it's not the best one. So I just wanted to have a conversation to help others, saying we've all had to come up with new coping strategies now, and we're going to have to keep inventing new ones as we finally find some kind of plateau where we think, okay, we're at a new normal.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. This is one of the first ones where I don't have a glass of gin near me.
We all have something to drink, and you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've an.
Yeah.
I'm ashamed.
You're doing it wrong today.
All I have is my. You're always so classy too, Mike. You always have like a nice like glass of wine. Me, I will drink wine out of like the most pedestrian of cups. Like, well, I have nothing else, so let me find the last sippy cup that my 5-year-old has hanging around. Look at Kathleen's very nice thing of wine. I'll drink wine in like a Scotch tumbler.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite thing is my girlfriend has the adult version of wine sippy cups that they actually have the sippy cup lid, but they're for wine.
Oh my God!
It's actually a couple of theaters in Seattle literally require you to buy a wine sippy cup if you want to have wine in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
So does Villa Montalvo out there in the Silicon Valley, and I've kept mine so that I can keep and I can take it to other places.
Yeah,
Back when things and places were still a thing and you could actually go places, my wife and I were season ticket holders for the local theaters, and they had the same thing. Sippy cups every time you come in. I'm like, all right, I'm 5. This is great. Hit me with another.
It's the way to do it.
Yeah,
It is.
It's. I mean, and I'm surprised that that more places don't have like those open. I remember when I first moved to New Orleans when we lived down there for like a year, and we were in a restaurant, and I don't know. I think I had known this, but I had forgotten it. And I went to get up, and I hadn't finished my drink yet, but it was late. We were trying to get home, and they're like, "Oh, do you want to take that with you?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, right." Because I live in Pennsylvania, which has some of the most arcane. Speaking of coping strategies, liquor, which we just got done saying was not a great one. So in Pennsylvania, it's like for the longest time you couldn't buy in grocery stores, you couldn't buy in convenience stores. You had to if you bought it even out of like a beer distributor or a restaurant, you could have X amount of ounces that you could take out at once. Now it wasn't like one visit. You could go out to your car, drop it off, and come back in. So I don't know what they were trying to prove with that, but in New Orleans, they're like, "Yo, here's your to-go sippy cup, Mazel tov," which I actually, I've been doing that more often lately. Like around
Yeah.
here, I'll just buy beer and sit out on the sidewalk. And I mean,
Last time I was visiting my parents, I definitely hit the ounce limit and had to come back in and rebuy.
yeah, it's so crazy. So yeah, so for we talked. So alcohol uh it's good. It's good for some people. And honestly, alcohol as a coping mechanism, not the greatest because it is a depressant. Especially if you are like me and you see a therapist and you take antidepressants, that may be counterproductive. Um,
Mm-hmm.
with alcohol, and speaking of Pennsylvania, I don't know, Joe, you're in Seattle, correct?
Correct.
Mike is in New York. Kathleen, you're in DC somewhere? No, where are you?
Virginia, yeah.
It's close. And
Virginia.
well, if it dawns on me, I have no idea where the hell you are, and you might want to keep it that way. Okay,
His
yeah, he doesn't like I
basement.
tell us. So we have Governor Wolf shut down because our liquor stores are state run. So that's one of the first things he did was shut down all the liquor stores, which did not go over well with people. He didn't shut down distilleries because it's private business. So that's definitely changed the way I think that I'm going to buy it from now on. But yeah, like have any of you had either from yourselves or from friends of yours that have used alcohol as a coping strategy, and has it blown up in their faces? Can it ever be good?
I don't think I'll speak for myself. For me, wine is a hobby. It's not a coping strategy. And I think that's the way. Alcohol doesn't solve problems. It just sort of delays them. So not really a good coping strategy, but fun sometimes, right? I enjoy a good glass of wine like everybody else. But it's not therapy. It's good times. It's fun.
Yeah,
It's like eating pizza. Eating pizza can be fun, but that's not a good way to like take care of yourself. To down a large pepperoni every night.
says you.
But it feels good.
Oh man, I had a really good good pepperoni pizza and a really good bottle of wine about 3 nights ago, and I got to tell you, that was some good coping right there. I think the thing, and by the way, I am in Michigan to answer the earlier question, and Michigan has the best deep dish pizza. Just putting that out there. The thing that
Chicago might have something to say about that, Wolf.
no. Chicago, we can. This may need a longer podcast, but
This is a religious war we're about to start here about what good pizza is.
But the thing is that I think any of these strategies in and of themselves is a good thing, right? Like one night with some good wine and some pizza, awesome. To Mike's point, if you're doing it every single night, and then suddenly you're doing it every single night and at lunchtime just to make it through the day, maybe you've taken a coping strategy too far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
I was gonna say, yeah, my wife tried the alcohol coping a little bit on the weekend, went flying off the rails, and it's like, how do you do this? How do you even use this for coping? Like, I just feel terrible.
Yeah, and you know, it's not something that I think a lot of people might not realize, even that are of age and have done it for a long time. But like, I mean, I certainly feel it if I think, oh, this is fun. I could be home and nobody's going to notice, and I can have beers during the day or whatever. For me, it affects my cognitive ability for days afterwards. Like if I have really, and I don't even need to really do a lot of it, honestly. But I think what a lot of people don't really think about is that kind of afterglow effect of just being a little less sharp. And then from a personal perspective, like that will cascade. And if I do that a few days in a row, I've reset that clock. I'll usually feel fuzzy for at least 3 to 4 days. And then if I reset the clock on day 3, there's another 4 days, and suddenly it's 2 weeks and that kind of thing. So compounding all of the problems that we have to deal with already. So, but on the same point, yeah, you need to blow off some steam once in a while. I am certainly a proponent of that. And now I feel classier because I order my gin from a distillery. Thank you
I think
very
that,
much.
we're all saying that yes, it can have an impact, but why are we reaching for that one coping mechanism being wine? And I think that, I had a really stressful day and I had a few things just hit me sideways. And I made sure tonight that I didn't have 2 glasses of wine, that I had a glass of wine and a tea, and then I built a toolbox of other coping mechanisms. Because if you keep using that one coping mechanism, it's going to lose its effect and you're going to be doing it more and more. So I always know that if I'm going to have, I know that there are going to be a few more things that are going to hit me sideways in the next 8 to 10 months. It's just going to be the way it is. And we need to build other coping mechanisms. Mine is get away from the computer and go walk in the garden and pull some weights, or fix dinner, or make sure I have 2 or 3 books that I can read, just because it's so easy to, once you've had that coping mechanism, like a glass of wine, or going down the rabbit hole on social media, you just keep doing more and more of it until, like any drug, it loses its impact when you've done just a little bit of dose. So you keep taking more and more, and before you know it, you've fried your nervous system and your cognitive ability does go away.
I wanna pick up on that one. Just to be clear, I've got wine because of you all. Last time we were on the podcast, I'm like, why don't I have wine? This looked like such a great time. So I was bringing up the bottle, and my wife was giving me side eye. To Kathleen's point, when I used to run the apprenticeship, one of the things we spent a couple of weeks on was this idea of a stress toolkit. I think it's very important that people are good at managing tasks, but equally managing stress. And the concept of a toolkit or a toolbox is very important because you need 3, 4 different things that will get you in a good mood. You need to know what those are. And you also need to be prepared, as the pandemic has really reinforced, for when things shift. You need to be able to scale your stress management tools up and scale them down as things go wonky or things settle.
Yeah.
Right, 'cause-
So
yeah. Go
ahead,
ahead, Mike.
I was gonna say, I think that this is the time that it's really hard to build that toolkit while you're in the middle of an unprecedented global, reordering, right? The hardest thing that I've found is folks in my orbit, in my sphere, who are saying, like, how do I take care of myself now? And it's like, okay, that's a great question to be asking, but a lot of the toolkit that you needed to have built it 6 months from now or before this all happened, right? This is not the time. For example, I've been watching this with one of my friends. This is a really hard time to go get a therapist. Like, if you don't have a therapist already, actually, I watched this happen with one of my friends recently. They tried to find a therapist here in Brooklyn. There aren't any. It's kind of like trying to buy toilet paper, right? Like, every therapist that I know is booked already because, like, my therapist, who I normally would see once every couple of weeks, and maybe I'd cancel because I'm on the road or whatever, I see her every week right now, because now is the time that relationship is even more important. Like, I think and so it's funny to be talking about coping strategies and I'm being like, well, you don't have any, but there's things you can do. I'm just saying, I think that there's real benefit in what Wolf said about preparing in advance for some of these things. Like, you got to build those resiliency strategies when you're not under incredible stress.
Well, I don't want to have people lose hope that they can't build one right now, but there are things. I think it's sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to be.
No, I don't mean to be the negative person, because I actually think there's lots of things you can do, and I realize I'm coming off like, if you don't have one, your life sucks and give up, and that's not what I meant at all. So.
And that's all the time we have, folks. That's what we're gonna leave you with.
We're all just gonna hang.
Fucking abandoned ship.
Some more wine. We're done.
Danny, can I put in a shameless plug? Is that okay? I don't know
ahead, sure. Go right ahead, because Mike's not doing us any favors.
Yeah. Speaking of you out there who can't find a therapist right now, just a shameless plug for my wife Stephanie Gorlick, who is taking telehealth. She got a couple sessions open and paneled in Michigan, Illinois, and Ohio. Easier to find than toilet paper, as Mike said. That's probably not a really good plug, but bound together counseling is definitely a source there.
Mhm.
To Mike's point too, though, a lot of our coping strategies have disappeared. So my coping strategy was hitting the gym in the morning with my bros, and I would say bros because you have to say bros when you're in the gym. I can't do that anymore. I can't get to the gym. My other coping strategy, and this was one of my favorite things in my stress toolkit, was a massage. I've got a massage service that I can go to once a week if I need to. I'm usually there once a month. I have not been able to do that. So it's important you establish the toolkit as soon as you can. But to Mike's point, a lot of the things in our toolkits we can't do right now. It's just not possible.
So, Wolf, I'm missing my haircut, my manicure, my massage, my Pilates classes, but I've built a few things there. What have you built in?
So the haircut is funny. Real quick aside, I was looking at myself in video the other day. I'm like, you know what? I can do this. I like my Corona view, look. It's a little wild. It's a little free. I'm like, I can handle this. My wife goes by and she's like, you look like Martin Sheen off The Prodigal Son, right? Like your hair. I don't know if you know this, but you look like an imprisoned serial killer. You know this, right? Like, you're a therapist. You're supposed to make people feel good. So so yes, that's another thing we're all dealing with. Personally, what I've done is I've fallen back on the Pomodoro technique. So for those of you, I'm sure everyone in this video knows it, but for those listeners who don't, you set a timer. It's usually 25 minutes. You do 25 minutes of work and 5 to 10 minutes of something else. And so for me, I do 25 minutes of work. Then I lift weights for a couple minutes. I walk out the door feeling like a wizard, and I go, "House goblins!" And the cats run to me. I pet the cats. I stretch, and I sit back and I do it again. So at least I get some exercise and that boost of a purring cat. But man, do I ever miss my massages? How about you, Kathleen?
So what's interesting is I really am into Pilates, and even though every single studio is doing some kind of video, I need to have consistency or I'm not going to be consistent. So I had actually signed up before this even started because I was moving back and forth between the East and West Coast. I needed to have something consistent. So I signed up $18 a month for Pilates anytime and really enjoyed the service because I could, if I was on the road, I only had a stretchy band. If I was at home, I had different equipment so I could search and it was either 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or 40 minutes. Obviously, I've been posting a lot of pictures of gardening, so I'm out in my garden all the time. I try to put in at least 4 or 5 miles of walking a day. And I've really tried to, as some people know, I have an electrosensitivity, so I have to be really careful about how much time I'm on a computer and even how much time I watch movies or television. And I can only watch about 3 hours of television a week. So that's been helpful to like pull that back. But I think one of the biggest coping strategies for me is really working on my communications with my partner. Um, we both work at home, and it's amazing how in everyday life, either they travel or you travel. And so someone picks up the slack and things get done while you're away. And then all of a sudden you're both there and you're both looking at the pile of laundry and going, "You going to do it? It's your turn," and this little animosity starts building up. I really have to, applaud my partner, because after 25 years, he basically has finally sort of realized, hey, we need to communicate better. You need to work more on your relationships. The longer you're in them, and this is a situation where you really need to add more investment. So we really like, okay, who's making dinner today? Who's making lunch today? What days are we going to do chores? And really, I think that those coping strategies that we're implementing now are just going to be gold mine when we're out of this, because our life is going to be able to move a lot more smoothly.
Yeah, there was
Yeah, I think it's
No, go ahead, Mike.
Go for it.
No, I was about to say there's a really great book, and I've talked about it on here before, called The Power of Habit. By I forget the dude who's it's by, but I'll post a link in the chat to it. That helped me a great number of years ago, and honestly, I'm gonna need to do it again because whether we like it or not, a lot of us gave ourselves, and as we rightly should have, a free pass of sorts, because this is unprecedented times and like all bets were off and there was a lot of like joking like haha in our underwear every day and blah blah blah. Now I'm going to do this and do this, and what we don't realize is that that's fine for a week maybe, but over the course of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 weeks or whatever, those habits are now deeply ingrained. It is going to be very difficult for a lot of people, myself included, to shake those bad habits that I personally was like, it's whatever, it's unprecedented, and I'll get over it. When I had just got done forming a lot of really great habits, and so in that book, he actually covers a lot of different companies that were taken over, that were revamped because they believed in these methods of forming these habits. I'm sure a lot of us have heard you do something 3 times and like then it takes, good or bad, you do it enough times, 3, 4, 5 times, and then it becomes a habit. And that goes both ways, good and bad. So, but it's that first time that is different. The first time doing something shitty for yourself, oh, that's easy. Like, yeah, no, it's easy and it feels awesome. Doing that good thing the first time, for getting good habits, quite a bit harder.
Just to jump on that idea and add to it, there's another great book that came out earlier this year by BJ Fogg, called Tiny Habits. And BJ was this crazy guy at Stanford who did all this research into human behavior. And what he found was that the best way to create habits over the long term is to do small things. So right now I meditate for 3 to 5 minutes a day. That doesn't sound like a lot, but if you do it every day, then some days it's easier and I feel like I have extra time. So maybe I do 10 minutes. But there's lots of really interesting strategies in that book as well about how to form those habits, especially the stuff that's hard for, to figure out how to get done.
For me, it's definitely been meditation has been something I initially thought was silly and has become a huge part of my ability to kind of deal right now.
What kind of meditation do you do, Joe? Do you do just sitting or walking, or because there's so many different wonderful ways of meditation?
Typically I go lay in bed and just occupy my thoughts with something that I can run on repeat.
Mm-hmm.
That
because
I find comforting.
there's so many different programs. I know, Mike, because of you, I was just gonna say, I still haven't figured out how to work it. I've had it for a year. Scares me, but you want to tell people about that?
Yeah, so I'm going to share my life hack around meditation. So anybody who knows me knows I have like incredible ADHD. My brain does not do unless I'm in hyperfocus, my brain does not do the quiet, calm thing. So I know I look ridiculous right now. I sort of look like a weird Geordie LaForge from Star Trek: The Next Generation. This is called the Muse headband. I think it's choosemuse.com. But basically what it is it's a biofeedback EKG and heart rate monitor that goes on your head. And you go into the app, and the neat thing is you put your headphones on, and if you basically allows you to control your brain waves and get biofeedback on the brain waves. So it gives me something to focus on, which I'm not really very good at what Joe just said. If my thing is to try and do a mantra or whatever, like 3 minutes into doing a mantra, I'm thinking about what I'm having for lunch that day. And it's really hard for me to get back. This thing's sort of a cheat code, right? That helps me stay on top of that. And I know there's a lot of people in our industry that have a similar brain to mine. You might find this useful.
So I'm also super bad ADHD. I've just managed to pick the exact right topics that I can do this. So it's a challenge to pick the topics I can meditate on.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
freaking hard.
I have to try yours. I have to try your way because that might work for me too. But this has been my life hack around it. It's the only way that I can actually be consistent with it is because it gives me something to do, and also there's a point system and it's gamified and it
Yeah.
keeps my brain intact.
So I used to study kung fu, and at the beginning and end of every class there would be a meditation period, and it would be it was almost more stressful in the beginning because just like with any technique that my Sifu was teaching us, you thought if you're not doing it right, you're screwing this up and you're dishonoring and blah 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 blah, and it just took so I think I did kung fu for 5 years, 6 years, and I think I had just learned to breathe properly, like at the end of it. So yeah, a lot of it is just finding, and that's also the hard part is finding a quiet place to do this. I am very spoiled in that I have a number of quiet places that I can go and do this. But yeah, if you do have like a little, it could be as little as a broom closet, whatever you have. I highly recommend, if I can give like a couple pro tips about at least equipment, is think of it much like I think about my little studio here, right? I'll look at the camera for a real second. It's kind of dark in here, but above the whiteboard, I have a bunch of those foam sound absorbing things on the wall. I had my wife go in the next room and I just yelled and I was like, "Where do you hear it the most?" And she's like, "In the corner." So that's where I put it. I have two sound absorbing things behind me. And another little pro tip that I had learned was to put like sound absorbing blankets over like the door to at least dampen some of it. And you could get something as cheap as if you go to like a U-Haul place, if there's, I don't even know if they're open right now, but putting those over the door. So you can, and those panels, I got like 24 of them for like $20, and that was pretty good. So if you want to do this and you want to outfit your whatever little space that you have, like try to think outside the box a little bit, and study things like soundproof booths and things like that. And it's amazing what you can use for that.
I think for me, the other thing that I've started doing is, since I'm working out so much, but also that I'm sitting at my computer much more, I'm having to remember to get up more. I love Wolf's sort of tips, but I make sure that I stretch and I do some kind of yoga in the evening, just sort of a way to ramp down. And I make sure that I start doing that at 8 or 8:30, because I know everyone else is off gaming and they just start ramping up at 8. I did that in grad school, and I wouldn't be able to go to sleep until 4 a.m. So I am a person that gets up at 4 a.m. and I go to sleep really early, and 8:30 I just set the clock and that's it. Everything's off and I go and start doing stretching. I have this wonderful person that I love listening to, Deva Pramal, and she's just got this most gorgeous voice and it's soothing. And I just start stretching, and sometimes it ends up being 20 minutes, sometimes it ends up being 45 minutes. But I always end it with via Pariti Karani, which is actually just legs up the wall, which is really great for
Yep. I
stretching
love that.
hamstrings. And you have to stretch your hamstrings so that your lower back releases, and it also allows the entire back to relax. But also being grounded like that grounds your entire nervous system. So
Now,
whenever I would do the mental health village, I would teach yoga, and I would always make sure people knew to do legs up the wall.
one caveat that I remember my yoga teacher telling me: before you attempt any of this, speak to your physician, because there are things like legs up the wall can be bad if you have like circulation problems or I forget what other conditions might be. I had never seen it in all my years doing yoga, and despite my doughy exterior, I can still bend. But before you do any of this, it feels awesome. Talk to your doctor if you have any concerns or like pre-existing things like
Yeah.
blood disorders.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
Dan,
if you're like me and you don't bend. I this all sounds fantastic. It will not be me. I don't. There's no legs. What two things
But
though?
Danny,
Part about the stretching and then part about the meditation. In terms of stretching too, I think it's important to look at our chairs. So, for example, my setup that is very austere that you sort of see a little bit at the moment was put together for me to sit in like a half hour, an hour, right? It wasn't meant to be 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I actually engaged an ergonomics coach, and she looked at it and winced and let out a deep sigh of agony. And I thought, this is not good. And so I'm actually buying some new furniture and everything. But I think it's important too that we look at our ergonomics. And there's lots of information online about how to measure that out and figure it out. Because a lot of our spaces that we're working from home and is just simply not designed for how we work.
Yeah, I mean, me right now, at least 3 other times, if I go back and look at this video, I will have adjusted myself to sit up, or I am hunched over like this, or I am doing, and I know better. I had back issues for years. I know, and I have a great chair. Speaking of like using your ergonomics and things as your coping mechanism to help keeping that blood flow. If you have the means, and I always hesitate talking about this, but like, listen, if you have it, cool. If not, buy the best that you can. There are certain things that I will always spend more money on, the whole buy it nice or buy it twice type thing. And that is beds, mattresses, shoes, and office chairs. My last office chair was lasting me for 10 years, and it was head to toe memory foam because I had just started working from home when I started at Mandiant, and I was like, I'm just going to get something really dope. Like, that was a couple $1,000s. This one behind me that I'm sitting on now is about the same, but I know it's going to last me for a very, very long time. But yeah, get the best that you can. All of our bodies are different. I have a thing where my spine is pushed forward a little bit, so if I have a shitty, too soft or whatever, it's a very fine line. Don't expect one size to fit all for this stuff, and don't be discouraged if you can't find something that works for you that might work for 100 other people.
An important thing about that, Danny, is right now is a really great time if you're being forced to work from home to talk to your company about that, right? Companies, especially larger companies, often have expense programs for work from home, or to Wolf's point about ergonomic consultants. Any of the big companies I've ever worked at, they had an ergonomics department. Nobody knew that existed, but if you look on your corporate internet, you might find some interesting resources around that. But especially now, I mean, I've told my whole company, like, if you guys need to expense a chair, this is the time. If we're all going to be stuck working from home for the next 6 months, this is the time to not throw out everybody's back. Let's spend an extra couple $1,000s to make sure that everyone can work. Because normally we would spend that on office chairs at the office. Now everybody's office is their living room. So, this is a time when lots of companies are doing things. Reach out to HR, reach out to, if you have an ergonomics team, like, this is the time to use them. So
it's keeping on the topic, because talking about the coping strategies and different ways that manifests. What are I wonder if some of you will share your worst coping strategies, which is like your instinctual, I know this sucks, but it's going to make me feel better right now. And it's exactly, because sometimes you just need to feel better in that moment. Like, you're not thinking about the long-term everybody's always booze. Mine?
Danny, yeah, I think the broad answer is going to be liquor.
Yeah. See, but that's
or wine.
Right. And that could be for a lot of people. However, mine's not that. Mine is unequivocally food. Food is my side hoe. Food is my, I am an emotional eater all the time. I've gotten a lot better with therapy and things like that. And that's one of those things that really, like, because you could drink gin all day long, and like, you'll probably gain a couple of pounds. But for me, I used to have a real thing with like Grubhub, and you don't even want to, when I first recognized it, I totaled up how much I had spent on Grubhub that year. I'm not even going to fucking say that number right now. But it's hands down for me. It's food because it's accessible, and It's almost
So for me, the other one, and it's a little tied to my other coping strategy, um, but it's stressful not eating rather than eating.
Right.
So
Like forgetting to
that's
eat or not.
I swing the entire opposite direction.
For me to
So
do,
I
for me to
lost-
do that, that's actually like a good like for me to do. And some of my friends have given me shit about this, and everybody's got an opinion, right? About things like fasting. I was fasting on and off for a very long time, and I always felt incredible. It's getting past the first couple day hump that was always bad for me, but it did a lot of really great things for me. And then when I would tell people I was doing like a 1, 2, 3, I did a 5-day fast once, and I felt awesome during and after it. And then of course you get all the side chair MDs going, "Oh, well, actually," I was like, "Oh no, bro." I talked to my actual doctor, and he was like, "No, you're good." So maybe something to look at. There's a lot of really great subreddits doing it a healthy way, doing it out of stress, like Joe was just saying, like a not super great coping is not the greatest. But if you plan it and do some research on it, like for me, it worked.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
R fasting
like-
subreddit is really good.
Yep.
So I've always heard of the freshman 15, right? Freshman 15, you gain 15 pounds.
Mhm.
You know, the newest one is the COVID-19, right? We're all going to come out of this 20 pounds heavier.
I think I'm pretty
or
on pace
20
with that.
pounds lighter.
Yeah, I'm there.
Nope.
Yep.
So wait, I just want to, Danny, you asked about weird coping strategies.
Yes,
so
yes.
I have, I think, a weird one that I'll share with everybody. One of the things that relaxes me the most in the world is the sound of falling water. And I wish I had Kathleen's backyard because she, whenever we talk on the phone and she's in her backyard, she has that sound and it's just wonderful and relaxing. But if I'm really stressed out, you will probably find me sitting on my bathroom floor with the shower running, because that sound just calms me. And it's not the most environmentally, kill me for climate change later, but in the middle of all this, there's been a lot of days where I'm just like, I'm going to turn the shower on and I'm just going to sit here for a while and I'm just going to let this calm me down.
One of my favorite things in the world, and I used to do it as a bad reaction to things and very very movie cliche-ish, but now it's actually, I use it as a good, like, I'm going to sit down and I sit in the shower. I love it. But like it's great. A matter of fact, when I remodel my bathroom someday, it's going to be specifically around me getting to sit down and just hanging out and thinking.
Annie?
Yeah.
Digital thermostatic valve.
What's that?
Digital thermostatic valve is what you want to do when you remodel your bathroom.
Okay.
It's you press a button and it comes on at a specified temperature. You don't have to remember where to put each of the handles or anything. It's
Ooh. I like
Mike
this.
is already checking it out.
I'm Googling right now. That's awesome, Joe.
I did not intentionally get this. It was just something that came with the house I got, but oh my God, I can't go back from it. It's amazing.
Posted link in the chat for that. That's
That
going to be
is-
on my list.
That is a freaking coping strategy right there.
Hey, Wolf, do you have any like really shitty coping strategies that you run to that you have to?
Well, I mean, I'm with you on the eating. So I love me some Ben and Jerry's ice cream, some chips. I would tell you one of my perhaps maladaptive coping strategies that isn't necessarily bad, except for when you have like to-dos and things you need to get done, is I love going to like rewatching old sci-fi. Like queue up Star Trek Next Generation and, let 6-7 hours go by and be there with the, original characters. I'm thinking about this specifically because, Mike mentioned Geordi, but that works. Stargate is another one. Those old characters we all know and love, and I can just click on, revisit, feel the nostalgia, and turn my brain off. And after a few hours, feel like myself again.
And for a lot of people, where we've been conditioned to not turn your brain off, to not just sit in front and binge and things like that. it's got its place, especially like now. There's some I talked earlier about. Oh, all rules are out the window. Some of them. That's like what they say in the Matrix. Some of these rules can be bent, others can be broken.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's great. Sometimes you absolutely have to turn your brain off. I have to turn my brain on. I feel better when I'm in here doing things. And if I can push through the end of the day and I've done enough of that, then yeah, absolutely. We got about what do we got? We got like 5 minutes left. Um, what haven't we talked about for coping? What haven't we hit on? Final
Can,
thoughts.
can, can I
I'm gonna
talk about my
start with
my
Kathleen.
coping magazines that didn't work out well?
Sure.
So mine is wine. And I actually went through a period where I realized that I think it was like the first 2 or 3 weeks where the first glass of wine went to the second glass of wine, then went to the third glass of wine. And I do talk to a therapist once a week, because I have lots of issues to overcome. It will probably take me until I'm 100 to get over them all. Um, but I made sure I mentioned to her that, look, the 2 glasses of wine is getting into 3, and on the weekends the bottle of wine is getting to 2, and I'm fortunately I could still cope the next morning and still do a kettlebell workout in the morning, but I realized that that wasn't healthy. So it's now, other than when I'm talking to a good friend in New York, I try to stick with 2 glasses of wine whenever I have it. But I'm also really very fortunate that I started to lose weight before I this all happened, and I set really good eating habits starting last fall. So I now really watch, my carbs, or really watch that, and really look at that as an indication if I'm starting to reach for the dark chocolate, or if I'm starting to reach for the focaccia, what else can I do and what else is going on? Give myself permission to do it, but also realize I need to change some other habits. So it's my coping strategy is being very observant of what other things can I do in self care.
There's
I,
a
I I think that's one of the most important things. And I was talking to Wolf about this as well, that having a yardstick by which to measure yourself and to know if you're going off the rails. And actually, I was talking about the Muse earlier. I can tell how my stress level is based on how I perform on a 5-minute meditation on that. My brain's all over the place and the graph looks like a sine wave. That's one thing. If I'm in super chill for 3 minutes or 4 minutes and 58 seconds out of a 5-minute meditation, that's a different thing. And I can sort of modulate my days based on that measurement. Just like Kathleen, you're talking about, like you can sort of tell when, what things are taking you off the rails and what things are keeping you on the rails if you've got something to measure against. And I think that's something that we don't talk about enough, is having some sort of, I can't believe I'm going to say this, having some sort of KPI to measure your mental health.
yeah.
I know it sounds ridiculous, but being able, it's true in business. You don't get what you don't manage, or you get what you do manage, right? And you get what you measure. And I think there's an important thing about that for our mental health that we don't talk enough about.
Yeah, there was something that Kathleen had mentioned about like one turns into two, turns into three. What actually has worked for me lately, and this is just like anything else. Just like any attacker can change their tactics and their techniques, and I mean sometimes mantras that have worked for us for months suddenly don't work anymore. They don't mean anything anymore. So you got to find something else. That's not necessarily a bad thing. That's your brain adjusting. So you can have a new one and it's going to work. So when the mantra stopped working for me, I would actually take. There's a great book which I have never actually finished yet, but called Thinking Fast and Slow. So I took the concept of, let me think what I'm about to do. Let me think through this slowly. Like, this is gonna feel satisfying right now, but that's right now. Look forward 2, 3, 4 steps. Right? What's it gonna feel like in an hour, 2 hours? What are you gonna think about yourself and by tomorrow morning? Right? So it's very like A to C thinking, right? If you can skip over B really quick and figure out what's going to happen later, it's the same principle as like what I would take, maybe all of our therapists would tell us, is that interrupting that signal in your brain, right? One of the things she taught me earlier was like this whole exercise of 1, 2, 3, stop, right? If you're thinking or you're having this reaction, or you're having like a habit trigger, if you can just interrupt that signal in your brain by just either saying 1, 2, 3, stop, or there's like a noticing game that you can play. If you can, it's just like a system interrupt, right? Interrupt that system, beat that race condition, and think about what might happen later. That's just one thing that has helped me. And I'm going to stop talking because we got like 2 minutes left. Wolf, any final thoughts from you?
No, I think this has been a really good conversation. I think the toolbox for stress management is an important concept. I think the diagnostic criteria or KPI that Mike mentioned is an important concept. Mine, for what it's worth, is I play a specific board game every morning online, and if I lose 3 out of 3 times in the morning, I know I'm fucked. I mean, the whole day's gone. So if I'm doing good over time, I know I'm in a good spot. So whatever it is that gives you insight into how you're doing, important. Scaling up your tools up and down, important. It's okay to have bad things, I hope, because I'm looking forward to some Ben and Jerry's and more wine, but not to overdo them, right? I don't think we need to feel guilty for indulging in simple pleasures, but we definitely need to keep an eye on where we're going.
Absolutely. Like we all the things we're saying not to do, we all do them, but it's because it's like it's why junkies make the best counselors, right? Because they've done it. Like, I am one of the best debt counselors you'll ever get because reasons. Joe, any final thoughts from you?
I mean, for me, it was I fixed something else that was broken, because this gave the opportunity to fix that. If anyone's been paying attention across the different streams of where I've been going. So that's kind of what my other like coping mechanism. It's bringing its own stresses, but it's something different to stress about than just COVID.
Right, for sure. There's always look for the infrastructure, right? Like, just to take it back to hacking again, take it back to security, is there are symptoms, there are machines going haywire, there are weird logins, there are creds. That's cool. All symptoms, all bells and whistles. But then the traffic is going out, and like, where's the C2? Where's the infrastructure, right? What is supporting these other bad things, right? And if you could burn that down, it'll take the other shit with it. So that's kind of how I try to look at it, at least, and help.
That's kind of how it's working.
Yeah, right. So anyway, I am back on kid duty. So thank you again to Wolf, Mike Murray, Kathleen, and Joe. And I'm sure we're gonna figure out another topic to get the 5 of these people together again. But until then, thank you everybody who hung out in the chat. I am subscribable now. A lot of you did it. I really thank you for it. I don't know where that's going to go, but it's fun for right now. And we'll be more involved in Discord next time, but the Discord is the link is up on the screen, and that is the amalgamation of all hacker streamers. We're trying to get everybody in there, have their own rooms, so they can have discussions on shows like this. And yeah, I'm going to start uploading this to YouTube as well, because I want to reach some more people. So YouTube, Vimeo, and then as always, you can follow me on Twitter. So everybody, thank you very much. And one more thing. I have decided to do this as a twice weekly show. So I am going to be on Tuesdays and Thursday nights at 10 o'clock, whether it's either having a panel like this, talking to people in chat, maybe doing like a call-in thing via Discord or Google. And then maybe the other day I'll just be gaming and dying and shooting things. Like, why not? So twice weekly set schedule starting next week, I think. So until then, thank you everybody, and we'll see everybody next time.
Are we leaving or are we still here? Thanks everybody.
That was so cool, guys. I always love hanging out with you guys.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this. It was great getting the band back together.
No, this is a good panel. I really enjoy it all the time. Good work, Danny.